So this is going to be day, I have no idea,
12?
day 12. Anybody have anything to say before we launch into beeps? Me neither.
Okay. So when did you wear the beeper?
So I wore the beeper last night and this morning.
Okay. How many last night? How many this morning?
Let me check that. So this morning I had 1, 2, 3, 4. Last night I did 2.
Okay.
Shall we do the fresher ones first, or is there a different situation? You prefer the situation from yesterday?
I think the freshest ones are probably the ones that I'll be able to report the best. So let's go with those.
Let's do that.
Okay. So I'll go backwards.
So this will be number 4.
Yeah, beep
6.
beep
Don't be
4
number
on
6. This would be
Yeah.
6 total. 12.6.
Fourth
Yeah,
of today,
be-
6 total. Yeah.
exactly. So this will be number 6.
Got it.
And so for context, I was watching a video on my phone, and it was a video about Forrest Gump. So what was in my experience at the moment of the beep was the word cigarette, spoken in the voice of Forrest Gump. So this was Forrest Gump saying cigarette. That was the experience. And additionally, there was the thought of how Tom Hanks imitated a young Southern boy to imitate or as his inspiration for the voice.
So I'm hearing Forrest Gump say cigarette
In a very particular way. And it's like this drawly accent that he was using.
Okay. And is that a part of a sentence or just that word cigarette?
Um,
And I'm really
It was
asking,
part of a sentence. It was part of a sentence, but it was just the word cigarette that was in that moment that was sticking out to me because I was making particular note of the way it sounded.
okay. So so Forrest is speaking a sentence, but Gabriel is focused on the word on a single word cigarette and the way it is spoken.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And at the same time, I am in some way reflecting on how Tom Hanks imitates a Southern guy to.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
And-
It's specifically thinking about how Tom Hanks imitated this young Southern boy that he knew to make the accent of Forrest Gump.
And that's from what you know about Tom Hanks, basically. I'm reflecting on a fact that I know about Tom Hanks, that he
Yes.
imitated a particular Southern boy.
Yes.
Okay. And is that thought, that reflection, a verbal thing or a pictorial thing, or?
It is not a verbal thing. I think there was something visual about it, which was like an image of Tom Hanks on a phone call with like this young boy. So but that was like a small portion of it. And also I can't be 100% sure that was actually there, but I think it was.
So I'm definitely reflecting on that Tom Hanks imitates a particular Southern boy to make this, and I may have been in a sort of a low grade or secondary or minorly way seeing an image of Tom Hanks on the phone with this kid.
Yes.
Okay. And is the uncertainty about the visual because I can't remember whether I'm making it up now or whether it was there? Is that the?
Yes. I'm not sure if I'm making up now or if it was there. Let me think about it for a second. Actually, okay, if there was a visual image, it would have been the boy in a room talking into a microphone. And I don't think there wouldn't be a picture of Tom Hanks in there. Tom Hanks wouldn't be visually present. And I do feel like that picture was there. I think I did make up the Tom Hanks being part of the picture when we were just talking.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to bet on it, I would say that picture was there. But it was also a very fleeting thought. So it's hard for me to say for sure.
So what I would say is that our method is not aimed at perfection. We understand that recollection is going to be clouded by reconstruction. And so the process here starting out to be a thinking. Then Russ says, is there something visual? And Gabriel says, well, yeah, there probably was. It was Tom Hanks. And then Russ asks for some more details. And then Gabriel says, well, it wasn't really Tom Hanks. It was the kid. That's less straightforward than than the recollection of the thinking. The thinking seems pretty straightforwardly recalled. I was somehow thinking about Tom Hanks and the kid, but the visual stuff seems more circuitous or unsure or something.
Yes.
And I'm willing to leave it at that, and with no criticism meant or implied or whatever. I think the process is not perfect.
Okay, got it.
And sometimes we can have a clear recollection of a visual thing, in which case I think we ought to analyze that or describe that in detail. And sometimes we have what I guess I would say is a fraught, or not meaning to put any particular emphasis on that word, but in some ways unsure image.
Yeah.
And I would say, well, let's not speculate any more about it than we already have.
You know what? I can also say another reason for the uncertainty here is because I do know I've had that image when thinking about this in the past. So it's like the same image that I had when thinking about this in the past. And I know I can say with confidence that I've had this image in the past. So part of my uncertainty here is also just wondering if maybe like that memory is, I guess, interfering with my recollection right now, which I don't know if that's useful information, but I find it interesting, so I thought I'd bring it up.
And by that image, you mean the kid with the microphone image, not the Tom Hanks with the phone.
Yeah, the kid with the microphone image.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think memory is interesting. Memory interference is interesting. I don't know anything about it, and I try not to know anything about it actually. So because I think if we go down the path of trying to explain things, we are going to depart from the path of trying to describe things.
Okay, got it.
And there's plenty of room in the world for explanation, and there aren't very many people out there trying to describe, and so I try to stick to descriptions and try to get that right as best I can.
Okay.
So I'm happy with that, I think. Well, let me say what I got, and you tell me whether this is right. So a good share of my experience, maybe the problem, I don't really know. A good share of my experience has to do with I'm listening in a particular drawly characteristics of cigarette that I have abstracted away or contracted away or explicitized away from a sentence that included that word. And I'm thinking that I'm recalling in a sort of an analytical way that Tom Hanks copied a particular Southern kid. And then I may or may not have had a visualization in some way of the kid.
Yes.
Then I think I'm pretty good.
I have one more question. Gabriel, is there a way, I don't know if this even makes sense, but which is more salient, or is there a way that you could say that any is more salient? I don't know why.
In this instant, what was more salient was I can say that the thought of Tom Hanks imitating the boy was more salient.
Okay. And by how much?
Uh, maybe like 60%.
Okay. Mm.
So let me make sure I'm understanding that correctly. That means I'm hearing Tom Hanks say cigarette, or saying I'm hearing Forrest Gump say cigarette is like 40%.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff about the Tom Hanks imitating a young Southern boy is like 60%.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
And then also wrapped into that thinking and cognitive process or whatever is this image of the young boy.
Possibly. Maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
possible. Yeah. And Cody, I'll say, just in case this is important, it wasn't Tom Hanks saying cigarette, it was Forrest Gump saying
Forrest
it.
Gump, yeah. I had misspoken earlier. And
okay, no worries.
Is that a hearing of the video, meaning like Tom Hanks is playing and I'm hearing him say that, or is this an inner hearing, like I've made this up?
It's a hearing of the video.
Okay. Then I'm good.
And I would observe that Cody corrected himself, which I thought was good. He started saying Tom Hanks was saying, and he corrected himself to Forrest Gump was saying, if my recollection is correct.
And, my bad, I missed that.
And I think so. We can replay the tape or whatever. But I thought that was a pretty smart change that he recognizes. I thought he recognized his mistake and corrected it at the moment, which I thought was pretty good. Number 2.
Okay. All right. So
number 5, I guess it would be.
Yeah.
Right.
And Amber, you're taking this. Am I taking it? Or?
I'm usually second, I think.
Yeah,
sure.
Amber second.
Yep. Okay.
Okay. All right. So, number 2. So, for context, I was sitting down and I was eating breakfast, and so in my experience at the moment of the beep, I had spoken the words "you're getting," or sorry, "you're going." No, yeah, "you're getting late." I had like whispered them out loud, and I had whispered them out loud in real life. So it wasn't that this wasn't an inner speaking. This was like I was actually speaking, and at the same time there was the image of my girlfriend, imagined. This was in my head, walking to a building.
And is either more salient?
I don't know. They're kind of the same. They're kind of experienced as kind of the same thing, so it's pretty hard to remove them.
And when you say the same thing, what do you mean by like all one experience? These are not two separate things, or?
I mean, they are obviously two separate things technically, but it's kind of like they're the same experience.
Okay. So this is like all part of one, like two characteristics of one experience is how you would.
I think that's a safe way of putting it, yes.
Okay. So just write that down. So I'll start with the seeing. Tell me what you see.
Okay, so I see my girlfriend, and she's walking to a building. It's sort of she's in a dress, like some sort of blue and green dress. She's white, black hair, and she has some sort of pocketbook as well. And the building in the background is it's the building. It has some brown, maybe it's made out of bricks. I think there's some sort of like metal beams of like steel that's painted blue. But the building itself is very undefined. And I also she's walking, I believe, on the sidewalk, and there is a blue sky in the background. And that's probably about it.
Okay. And you said that she was walking to a building. So are there two buildings, or is there
There's
something?
only one building. So she's like, there's only one building. She's almost there. She's like right at the door, basically.
I see. Okay. And is this building anything specific, or is this just a building?
It's a school building, but it's not anything specific aside from that.
So like you
It's
wouldn't
not
say
even
it's
a UNLV building. It's just a
right.
school building.
Okay. And is there anything more to be said about that?
I guess one thing is like the way that she's walking kind of indicates that she's going quickly. Like her stride is a little big. So
Is this are you seeing her from the like a profile, from the back, from the front?
this is a profile view.
Okay. Left profile, right profile.
I'm looking at her left.
And do you see her in motion, or is this like a still picture of a person in motion?
It's a still picture of a person in motion.
Okay.
Yeah, is there anything more to be said about this?
I don't think so. I think that about covers it.
Okay.
Just one more question. Are there borders to this? Like I'm seeing like a picture, or is it sort of like a real scene, or there's no border, it just kind of bleeds out into the.
The second I try to answer that question, I feel like I'm definitely, no matter what I choose, I'm going to be like sort of making that up. I don't think I know.
Fair enough. It's fine.
Okay.
So I would say about that is that there is a third choice between there being a border and there not being a border, and that is I wasn't really paying attention to whether there was a border or not.
Okay, I suppose that's true, but I also wasn't paying attention to the sky in the background, but I know there was a sky.
As in I saw the sky at the moment of the beep, or as I presume there must have been a sky because.
Oh, as in I saw it. It was
Mhm.
definitely there.
Okay.
There, but
So-
not central to my experience, right? In the same way.
Right.
Okay.
So what I would say about all of that is that there are gradations of being present to you. There's the sky that isn't as present as the girlfriend, and there's the borders that aren't as present as the sky.
Okay.
I mean, all of that stuff is. There's no reason why it has to be either there or not, either or either maybe or either two different kind of maybes or whatever.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that helps me think about it. Oh, so what was that?
If you have anything to say, I was just gonna say I'm good on that portion. If there's any more questions.
And well, let me make one more comment, and that's also true about my question about in motion. You answered that fairly confidently that it was not in motion, but there are gradations there. Well, it's like as in, well, I didn't really see her progressing, but it didn't seem like a still picture either. That would have been.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Probably because, yeah, that makes sense to me. Kind of like, when you're dizzy and you're looking out, and even if you keep your eyes fixed on a point, it still feels like it's moving.
Right.
It visually feels like it's moving, but it's just not.
And I think that's true in the inner experience. The in the real world, there, of course, there's a difference between a video and a picture, and there's not much in between. But that's not necessarily true in the experiential world.
Right. Okay.
I see her. I understand that this is a seeing of motion, and yet I don't really see the motion. So that doesn't mean I see a still picture either.
There are definitely some visual illusions like that too, where it's not technically moving visually, but there's like the sensation that it's moving visually.
Right.
Okay.
Number 3, which really is number 3.
Oh,
No, it's
there was another aspect.
There was another part. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I just wanted to double check on that. So you were whispering. I take you to be saying that you're whispering out loud. You're getting
Yes.
late.
Yes, I actively whispered that out loud. In the real world, I whispered it. It was also present to me. But
Okay. And is there anything more to be said about that?
no, I don't think so.
Okay.
I've got a couple of questions about that. Should I go for them?
Yeah, go ahead.
Was this whispering to anyone, yourself, or to your girlfriend, or?
It was to my girlfriend, but she wasn't there. So it was like I was imagining saying it to my girlfriend.
So the you in "you're getting late" is your girlfriend, not Gabriel. Okay.
Yes.
And we have talked in the past about an inner voice being sort of whispery. Is this whispery the same or different from that?
It's different from that.
So this is a true whisper.
Yes, this is a true whisper.
And I hear it more or less as it really is.
And
I think I'm good.
Okay.
Number 4.
Okay. So for context, I was texting with someone at the moment of the beep, and I had just texted the message I just finished typing the message, "That's so cool." So in my experience at the moment of the beep, was the reading, or was the typing / reading of "That's so cool," with many zeros, or sorry, with many, cool was extended, so there were many O's instead of just 2. So in my experience, was the typing and reading of "That's so cool," and that was spoken in my internal voice. That was spoken in the whispery kind of voice that we've talked about before. And additionally, there was an image of this character from an anime. It was Misa from Death Note.
Either any aspect of my experience that's more prominent?
I would say I'm not sure, because this thought process I was going through, at one point "That's so cool" was more prominent. Then later on, the picture of Misa was more prominent. And I don't know when during the thought process that beep happened.
Okay. And that's to say, just to understand what you're saying here, these things are ongoing. They've been going on for some time prior to the beep, and the beep interrupts that thought process, though. That includes the Misa and the typing reading of "That's so cool."
Yes. And it went on for a little bit after the beep started. So I don't remember exactly when during that process the beep was, so I don't know which was more prominent.
Okay, fair enough. So I guess just starting with the typing or whatever, but "That's so cool" part, not the Misa part, but so how is that present to you at the moment?
I'm sorry, which part?
The typing, reading, that's so cool.
Okay, yeah. Um, that's present to me as I mean there is something experientially different from typing the text as opposed to reading it. And so I guess whatever that, I don't know how to explain it, but it's that. So it was the experience of having typed the text. But also in addition to that is the experience of reading it. Because, at least at this moment, when I was typing it, I was also reading it. So, well, actually, I don't know if I was reading it or if I was saying it and then typing it. Um, I don't know which of those two it was. And there have been a few times where I was typing something out and we've had a sample, and it's been hard for me to tell whether or not the auditory experience was the act of me reading it, or if it was the act of me saying it and then typing it.
So
That was a mouthful.
I don't have the timing straight. I
Okay.
don't think. So has the typing concluded and now I am reading it? Or is the typing ongoing and the reading is in sync with the typing and the beep catches me somewhere in there? Or is the typing ongoing and the reading is ongoing, but they're not synchronous?
Okay. Okay.
Or I don't know.
Logically speaking, I had finished writing the message. Um, uh, like I had typed the L in cool. So logically speaking, the typing is done. But the act of typing is still part of my experience.
And by logically speaking, you mean in the real world of
Yes, real world.
keystrokes or thumb strokes or whatever. So
Yes.
the beep comes after the typing is concluded, but the experience is that the typing is still ongoing.
Yes. The experience is that I'm in the act of typing a message.
Okay.
And by typing a message, how exactly does that go?
Well, it's the act of typing something to someone, I guess. Like this isn't something I'm writing in my own notes or something like
Sure.
that.
I guess my
Uh,
question here is I can imagine as a there's a number of options here, right? Like I could imagine this is like a bodily sensation sort of a thing, right? Like I'm feeling my fingers doing this. Like it feels like my fingers are moving and typing, doing this act of typing. It could be I'm in the writing frame of mind, right? So this is really nothing to do physically. This is that, but somehow I'm formulating the words to put
Okay.
together as a message, or could be those things, could be something else. But that's I guess my question is, by typing, like how is that present to you at the moment?
Okay. That would be a frame of mind. It wouldn't be a physical thing. I think frame of mind is a pretty good way of putting it. I'm in the frame of mind I'm in the text messaging frame of mind. That seems very accurate to me. Because it's definitely different from like an email frame of mind, for example. So I think that makes sense.
And does that text message frame of mind, which I'm not I don't know if I fully have grasped that yet, but does that include like the inner speaking of that's so cool? Like is that inner part of it, that innerly spoken part, kind of what I mean by I'm in this frame of mind, or is that somehow different? It's this one thing that has multiple aspects. Again, both of those, neither of those.
Well, the inner speaking of that's so cool is not unique to the text message frame of mind, I suppose. What is unique to the text message frame of mind that we're talking about that the text message frame of mind is almost like just, the text message frame of mind might be one of those cases of technically the fact that I'm texting has an experiential effect, because if I was doing something else, it would feel different. In the same way that like like this armrest has an effect on me, because if it wasn't there, my arm would be falling through the chair. So I'm going to say I might sort of retract the text message frame of mind thing. Uh, there's a typing. All right, I'm confused.
So let me see whether I can unconfuse us. So
Okay.
at the moment of the beep, regardless of whether I am physically typing or not, do I apprehend myself as typing? That's so cool. That's as an
Yes.
ongoing thing.
Yes.
And I think that's what we've been calling the frame of mind, but that got us confused. So
Okay.
I apprehend myself as typing, even though I recognize on retrospection that the typing is over.
Yes.
And then I'm also saying, that's so cool. And
Yes.
is that in sync with the experiential typing, or does that seem like its own separate sort of strand?
That okay. That is what I have the difficulty separating, because, well, okay, let me think about that. Okay, no, it is part of the experience of typing. Yes. I was interpreting the question wrong.
And I guess both for Gabriel and for everyone else, is there anyone have anything more to say about this part, this aspect of the beep experience of the beep?
So let me see whether I got this schematized right. Is that, I guess I got to somehow can I change my background?
Let me change my view so that I can zoom you in a little bit.
Yeah, and I got to
There we
change
go.
my view so I'm not backwards. How the heck can I do that?
Oh, no, it was coming correct.
It was
Oh
coming
yeah,
correct?
it's just
Oh,
backwards for you, so that it's like you're looking in a mirror.
okay.
But it was coming. We could read it.
So you could read it?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
so if time is going, whichever way time is going, what's happening in the real world, this is harder to look than it looks. What's happening in the real world started and then it ended.
Mhm.
And what's happening in experience started after the real world typing and it ends somewhere after. And the beep comes in here. The beep comes in here somewhere, I guess.
Yes,
I guess
right.
maybe if I turn it around and look at it like this, the beep happens in here.
Yes, it happens somewhere after the real world one ends and before the experiential ends.
Okay. And the speaking of it, the experience of speaking it seems sort of in sync with the experience of typing it.
Yes.
Okay. That's the way I understood it.
Okay.
Can't draw it, but I can understand it.
And so, and then
Right.
there's, I'm not, yeah, that was good. So then there's the inner seeing of Misa.
Yes.
What do you see?
I see a blonde-haired anime style girl sitting back in a bed, and she's wearing kind of like goth clothing and has a bunch of unusual stuffed animals.
And so is this the case that I'm is this that I'm seeing Misa, I'm seeing her as, accurately, or is it that I'm seeing a blonde-haired anime style person and
I'm seeing Misa. That was I was giving a visual. Yeah, I'm
right? No,
seeing.
but I appreciate that, but I wanted to make sure those can be two slightly very different, or they can be
Yes,
slight differences, but very different experientially. So I wanted to make sure that
right.
we're talking
Yeah,
about the same thing.
I am seeing Misa. Uh, yeah, exactly. I'm seeing Misa in her room.
Clear in color, in motion.
It's not in motion. It is in color. Uh, and when it comes to whether or not it's clear, it wasn't. I wasn't experiencing it as unclear. I wasn't experiencing it as clear either, which I guess maybe clear is the default. Then in that case, it was clear. But I don't know if I can say whether or not it was clear or unclear.
Had a lot of details.
Yes. I don't. Uh, okay. Yeah, I suppose it had a lot of details if we look at the image, you know, if we dissect the image. Um, though I feel like I didn't experience it as a detailed image. I just experienced it as this is an image of Misa, or this is not an image. This is Misa.
I understood you to say originally, this is Misa. She's wearing a goth dress. She's on her bed. She's got a bunch of weird, crazy stuffed animals around her on the bed.
Well, that is true. But at the moment, I wasn't making a thematic thing out of those details. Those are just details that are in this imagined picture
So
or this image.
yeah, I didn't mean to say that you were making a thematic detail in the sense of I'm analyzing and somehow conveying to myself, well, there are stuffed animals, and oh, there's goth dress, whatever. But more in the sense of, when I'm looking at Gabriel on the screen, I'm seeing Gabriel. I'm not just seeing his left eye, although that might be where I'm fixated at the moment. But
Right.
I'm seeing him wearing a pink shirt and whatever.
Okay. Yeah, and that I agree though.
And I would say that if you ask me whether Gabriel is clear, I would say yes, even though that was not thematically, but I can make it thematically. Like Gabriel is one sense of clarity and the background is another sense of clarity. And regardless of whether I'm looking at his hand that's on his chin or whether I'm looking at his left eye, I'm thinking that I'm seeing Gabriel clearly, even though when I'm looking at his left eye, his hand isn't as clear, and vice versa.
Right. Well, in that case, okay. So we've had discussions like this before. When it comes to clarity, the image is objective. I mean, I don't know if the word objective makes sense here, but it seems like the image, objectively speaking, if I were to like draw it as best I could, and then undefined elements we disregard or something like that. I think it would be a pretty unclear image, but we've also said that even clear visual experiences have a lot of undefined elements and less of it is clear than we usually think. So it's a hard question for me to answer. I don't know if I understand how to answer the question of whether or not it's clear.
So I agree with all of that, including this difficulty. But what I would say, I think, is something like if when I'm looking at Misa, I have the sense of seeing Misa,
Mhm.
and I don't have the sense of seeing a blurred Misa, then I think I would say, well, I must have been seeing Misa clearly.
Okay. All right. In that case, I would say it was clearly Misa.
And it's the same sense as if I'm looking at Gabriel, I don't have a sense of him being clear one way or another. But if I look at Gabriel's background, then I would say, well, that I'm looking at a blurred background.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that would be the blurriness would be a fairly salient portion of my looking at Gabriel's background.
Okay.
And I wouldn't have that when I'm looking at Gabriel, even though Gabriel does, come and go. His left ear disappears sometimes because of the clarity of the background, the software that makes that
Mm-hmm.
makes the background happen. Sometimes this subtracts his ear, and sometimes it doesn't. And
Right.
but I wouldn't say that was an essential part of my seeing of Gabriel unless I was choosing to make it part of it.
Okay.
Or I guess what I would say to that is sort of like I'm looking at Gabriel in the same way, and sometimes I see the lines on Gabriel's shirt, and sometimes I don't. Right? But I'm not unclearly seeing it. I'm looking at Gabriel, and that's seeing
Okay.
Gabriel is very salient to me.
Okay. I can agree with I agree that it was clear then the image. The reason that I have trouble with the word clear is because I feel like usually the word clear is sort of, I guess, is not really reflective of experience because it's usually more of a description of I guess like computer screens or like pictures, like this picture is clear. Um, and what that means is there isn't, well, yeah, I think clear in the sense that we're using it now is not a visual characteristic, but um I guess it's not a visual characteristic. It's more of a cognitive thing, whereas clear, the sense that people usually use it, is sort of a visual characteristic. And maybe this will help explain my confusion, like the background there, my blurry background. I feel like that blurry background could be experienced, like if I was imagining my bedroom, I feel like I could have that as my imagined image. And in some cases, I would still experience that as a clear image of my bedroom, if that makes sense.
So I think it's difficult because I do think that clarity has a variety of different kind of meanings.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say that some people sometimes, and maybe even you sometimes, I can't remember, would say I had a visual imagery, and it was just not clear to me. I did not see any features. I did not. That I would say what that image, this inner seeing was not clear.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear you saying that here. I hear you saying I saw Misa, and
Right.
it wouldn't make sense to me to say, well, when she was blurry, I was seeing Misa in all of her real anime life, and that's what I hear you saying basically. And so I would say, well,
Yeah.
that's a clear seeing of, and everything is a little bit analogical or whatever. I mean, you're not really seeing; it's a
Okay.
visual experience, and she's not really clear. It's a apprehensional experience.
Okay. So in that case, in order for something to be like blurry, in order for an imagined experience to be blurry, does the blurriness have to be thematic? Like, do we have to be making a point of it?
I think the answer to that is no.
No. Okay.
Oh, so I think it's complicated
Okay.
because I think blurry can be I saw visual blurriness as it is when I look at your background now. I see your door frame and whatever. I see visual blurriness, and I'm sure people are capable of imagining that. But it's also the case that most of the time, even though my eyeballs are aimed in the same direction, like right now, I'm seeing the visual blurriness that's behind Gabriel. But most of the time when I'm looking at Gabriel, I'm just not paying attention to the background because it's not very interesting. I'm interested in what Gabriel looks like. And so I think there is a interplay between what is seen to be blurry and what is just not paid attention to.
Okay.
But what is not paid attention to is sometimes central.
Okay.
So
Right.
the example that's coming to mind is one that I've written about, where I don't actually remember where I've written about it, but the subject in the research thought her roommate was sort of loose moraled or whatever you want to say, and at the moment that she had a visual image of her roommate sitting on a couch with wearing just a bra as her top attire, and next to her was a guy who was blurry or not featured, and the point of the seeing was that she's with a lot of guys who are sitting next to her, and so the blurriness, she wasn't really attending to the blurriness particularly, but it was a feature of the seeing, and the center of the seeing was the whatever you call nowadays a girl who has a lot of boyfriends, but the seeing was specifically not clear about who the guy was.
Okay.
Even though that was not the center of the visuals, the center of the visual thing was the girl. So I think these things are complicated, and you just have to worry them through one beep at a time, basically.
It might. I think maybe it'd be useful to. So I would like it if you guys could send me this recording after, because
Okay.
I'd like to go over this again. And I'm wondering if maybe it would be useful to come up with words for different meanings of clear. But in this case, I'll agree that the picture of, or the imagined image of Misa was definitely clear in the way that we've described it here.
Okay. So number one, I'll send you the video, and number two, what I would say about whether we should come up with words, I think we should, and I think we should do that as slowly as possible, which puts me in sort of the backwards way from the philosophical camp, I think. But what I think is that the longer we wait before we come up with a set of words, the more likely that those words are going to have a full understanding for us.
Okay, that makes sense.
Whereas if we say, well, let's just now, as the result of one conversation, or maybe a couple of conversations, but as a result, let's define clear in this regard and clear in that regard, and call that this clear and that clear blurry, or whatever. We make then I think that we will be forced into the word discriminations rather than the phenomenon discrimination.
Right. Okay.
And I would prefer, so the whole method basically, I think, has this as its central feature, to keep the desirability of figuring out exactly what words we should use as the last thing that one would do rather than the first.
Okay. That makes sense.
Which I think makes me fairly unusual in the scientific or philosophical world or whatever.
You want to let the phenomenal discriminations force a word discriminations. You don't want word discriminations to force phenomenal discrimination.
Exactly. The word force might be a little strong, but pretty good, actually, I think.
Okay.
I think. when we have gotten to the place where we know how we're discriminating phenomenologically, I think it will be quite logical for us, quite easy for us to say, well, let's call this word that, this phenomenon that, and this phenomenon that other.
Okay, got it.
And that's sort of an empirical observation of what I think we have done.
Okay.
And I think it's of fundamental importance.
Okay, makes sense to me.
The longer you can keep the commitment to a description at bay until it's no longer a problem, then you can make a description.
Okay.
But I'll send you the tape.
Okay, thank you.
For what it's worth, I actually thought, Gabriel, I think your distinction or the fear of letting the words force the experience into certain tracks that may not necessarily be experientially faithful. I think that is actually that is the main tenet of DES about bracketing those presuppositions, right? Or why it's difficult, why it makes it difficult, right? Because we have to use these words to talk about it. I have to use something like the word clear, which is dirty. It has a lot of different varied connotations. But
okay,
that's what we're trying to work, I guess, not against per se, but we have to muck through it, right? Because we need to avoid that. We need to recognize that's possible, when really what we're trying to do is to let the phenomena be phenomena, right? And then have the phenomena first and foremost and try to describe that.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So I'm guessing we've screwed this beep up about as far as we're going to get it out. We should go into the next beep.
Okay.
Number 3.
All right, beep number 3. So, for context, I was watching a video, and yeah, I was watching a video. I was just sitting in my bed watching a video, and auditorially present to me at the moment of the beep were the words "each and every time," and this was actually spoken in the video, and I was experiencing it. It was part of my experience. That was part of a sentence, which was the whole sentence was "he dies each and every time," but auditorially, all that was present to me was "each and every time." However, the meaning of the whole sentence was still present to me at that moment. And additionally, and that was in the voice of the YouTuber. I don't know the guy's name, but it was in the voice of the YouTuber. Let's see, what else? Right. Okay. And that was about it. There wasn't really anything visual there. This was earlier in the morning, so it was a little bit more difficult for me to be engaged in this beep. And like, it felt a little more difficult to be accurate, but that's all. Usually there's something visual, but in this case, I don't really feel like there was.
Okay. And so I understand you to be saying that the guy is saying he dies each and every time, but somehow you're hearing only the each and every time portion of it.
Yes.
And that is distinct from saying he was saying he dies each and every time, and the beep just came at the end of the sentence. Or that somehow I have chunkified out the each and every time experientially piece.
Yes. And specifically, I chunked out the auditory each and every time bit, but the meaning of the whole thing was still present to me.
Okay.
It was just when it came to the sound in my ears, each and every time was chunked out.
Okay. And is there anything more to say about what chunked out? How that's
No, it was just like at the moment of the beep, it just felt like the sound of each and every time in this guy's voice was there, and the rest of the sentence wasn't.
And did it seem like the sound was there, or did it seem like the portion of the guy speaking was there?
Could you elaborate on that?
Well, I could say if I were focused on just the sound, I would say I was focusing on the timbre of his voice or his accent or his
Okay.
quality of his voice or whatever. Whereas if I was on his speaking, I was hearing this guy speaking and I got the
Yes. I was hearing this guy. Well, so that's a good question because so if I were to say that it was just if I were to say it was the second option, so I was hearing this guy speaking and only this end of the speaking was there, then I'm worried that the reason I'm saying that is because the semantic meaning of the whole sentence was there. And therefore, maybe all I did get was the sound, but because the sound in this moment was combined with the semantic meaning of the whole sentence, which wasn't chunked, I feel like this chunked out part was the guy speaking only, or was the guy speaking. But it's possible that the chunked out part was just the audio. However, it feels like the guy speaking because I also have the whole semantic meaning there. But in reality, the whole semantic meaning wasn't chunked, but just the audio. Does that make sense at all?
So if you were asking me about my experience, that it's an interesting thing. So yes, it entirely makes sense. Yes, it does entirely make sense. And B, it's a philosophical distinction that I just can't track. It's
Okay.
what I'm asking is a simple, phenomenal question that doesn't have anything to do with what I think is correct. What I think your analysis is correct. But my question is a much simpler question, which is, were you paying attention to the voice qualities? Was the center of this the auditory qualities?
Right. No, that was not the center of it.
Like I gathered, for example, in the Forrest Gump beep, that you were paying attention to the auditory qualities of cigarette.
Yes.
And in this beep, it was more the whole deal rather than just the auditory qualities.
Yes.
And the analytical thing that you said, I think those words were all true, but from in my experience, it sails past the phenomenon, which is what I'm interested in.
Right.
That
Yeah.
those words, no matter how accurate are those, or how accurate, regardless of how accurate those words are, they're not going to be able to answer the question, was I paying
Yes.
attention to the
I agree because either way, it would be the same. It would be the same experience. I think it would feel the same way. I think so. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, so it is 1:31. Do we have time for one more, or are we going to call it a day here?
Uh, I do have time. Yeah, I have time for more.
I'd say let's do one more,
Okay, sounds good.
which is Amber's beep.
Go ahead. You too.
Okay. Okay. So at the moment of the beep, just for context, this was last night, and I was at the gym, and also at the same time, I was listening to some video about Breaking Bad. Uh, and so at the moment of the beep, in my experience, were the words in Walter White's voice. So Walter White was speaking, "I am the danger," and there was an imagined image of Walter White, speaking those words angrily. And additionally, at the moment of the beep, there was, in my experience, was pain in my bicep as I was finishing a set.
And any of those more salient than the other?
It would be the auditory bit.
The I am the danger.
Yes.
And how much more?
That would be that would be okay. So the auditory combined with the image would be like set 80%. And then the pain would be maybe 20%.
Okay. So I'll start with the I am the danger. Is there anything more to be said about that?
So there was something about the characteristics of the voice which was actually present to me, which was the anger in the voice. It was said very angrily. And that was present to me. Yeah, I think that covers it. I mean, the anger was a combination of a few things like the graveliness and like, but I don't know if I would say those were present to me, as opposed to just part of what makes the voice angry. So yeah, I think I'll just say the voice was very angry.
Okay. And you're saying you were hearing this, right? Like, so it came from the
Yes.
video world, and
Yes.
I'm hearing. Okay.
Mhm.
And just to make sure, you said in Walter White's voice, and Walter White is a character, right? So this is his voice, not the actor.
Yes, this was Walter White's voice.
Okay. And just make sure I asked you this already, I think, but I'm just gonna ask again because I might have missed it. But so you're hearing it as if, let me make sure I'm getting my question straightened out. Like, I'm hearing it as it's normally being said. Like, I'm not hearing any emphasis on one word. I'm not anything like that, or
Yeah, no emphasis on one word. It's the whole phrase.
okay, got it.
And are you attending to the anger in this, or is the anger sort of thematic, or is it just the whole thing happens to be angry?
I would say that the darkness is thematic and the anger is part of what makes it dark. So I was thinking like in that moment about how I guess sort of monstrous like it was because it was a very dark scene. So the darkness was thematic. The anger was a part of the darkness.
And when you say you're thinking about it, is that to say that you're attending to that in some way, or that's present, or is there something more to it?
Or less to it?
Yeah, or less.
I would say it was thematic in the sense. Okay, so I'll stop using the word thematic right now. The sentence or the phrase, it made me uncomfortable like when I was hearing it because it was because of the darkness. It was so like so grim, and it wasn't in words necessarily, but I was thinking something like that's horrible, kind of. It was sort of an active. It was an active thought. Like I was thinking actively that's horrible. And Uh, yeah, that wasn't in words. So I think that would be an unsymbolized thought.
Okay. So is that active thinking, I guess? That's part of your experience at the moment of the beat, right?
So can I back us away from that for a little bit,
Okay.
because I'm noticing that his description did not include the thought until pretty late in this discussion,
Right. Yeah.
and so
I,
I would like to give him the opportunity to make that a first draft, and or
Okay.
a second draft, and turn it into a third draft. So it seems to me that it's possible that there was a dark implication of these words, and it was impacting Gabriel, impacting you.
Yeah.
And whether that impact, the question, I guess, is whether we think that impact was thematically, for lack of a better word, or cognitively, or effectively, or just
Okay. Yeah. So, um, I think I was getting a little confused because there was like an uncomfortable feeling that the words caused, like an emotional thing. Um, and I was getting confused about that in particular, the emotional aspect of it, and how it was present to me. But I can confidently say that there was sort of a thought of that's horrible. Now, I don't know if that's the words that's horrible. The words that's horrible were not present to me. And I also don't know if that's the best way of describing the thought, because there was almost like some sort of guilt mixed into it. Um, but I don't know of a better way of putting it than thinking that, then that's horrible. And okay. I'm definitely having a harder time explaining this one.
so. Amber, do you want to continue on this, or you want me to continue on this one?
I was gonna say that I know what you're talking about, like contextually. Just I know what scene you're talking about. I know like the
Mhm.
show. So I was wondering if I don't really like we. You mentioned earlier that you heard things from videos, right? So I'm just trying to understand where this additional component, if this additional component is part of your experience, is that is it to is this to say like I'm hearing this and there's something and I'm not just hearing it. There's a little bit of something going on in addition to just hearing it. Does that make sense? Like,
Yes, there
okay,
is something going on in addition to just hearing, which is like an emotional reaction, uh, and uh, an emotional reaction. Maybe, I mean, I guess maybe there isn't a thought. Maybe it's just an emotional reaction. But I feel like the emotional reaction is a thought, um, about the video, but I also might be just too confused.
okay.
So let me see whether I got it. The Walter Wright has said, "I am the danger, and you are impacted by that somehow." And the question is whether that impact is just as a affective feeling. I feel the darkness or whatever, or
Mhm.
whether I am in some analytical kind of way saying, "Well, that's horrible."
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, that's the question. And I think maybe when I use the word active thought, uh, I think that was a poor choice of words because I think the word active in that case was might have been interpreted to mean that I was sort of actively, intentionally, voluntarily producing the thought. What I meant by the word active was I meant that the thought is actually there. It's going on.
Okay, that's sort of how I understood it. I had that part of it wrong. So
Okay.
the question for me is mostly about to the degree to which this was a cognitive analytic kind of a thought or an affective feelingy kind of a feeling, or whether that distinction doesn't make sense for you at this moment, in this moment.
The distinction, I understand the distinction, and I would like to say it makes sense. However, I I, I don't think it makes sense to me right now. Because it feels like both.
Could be.
Okay.
So this goes back to let's not try to pin ourselves down early. The longer we can keep something going, and the more likelihood that we're going to get to be able to sort it through. So I think we should leave as a open question. Well, we don't know exactly at the moment of this beep or in Gabriel's experience in general, whether we should call this a cognitively analytic thing or a affectively thing or some of each or both or some other thing that we haven't yet figured out how to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
What I would notice in the world, I think there are some people who would be clearly analytical. Oh, this is horrible, and they would be saying that to themselves in words or unsymbolized thinking clearly that would be clearly translatable into words. That's a possibility. And there are other people who would just feel horrible, and they might feel it mentally, or they might feel it in their heart, felt heavy, or whatever. And then there are some who don't make that distinction that clearly, or that these things are wrapped up in each other.
If I were to describe it as best I could now, after hearing that, I would say it was an effective feeling of that's horrible. I don't think it was physical. I think it was mental. And yet the effective feeling of discomfort contained within it the I don't know proposition, statement, fact that this particular thing was horrible. It wasn't that I'm deducing from the feeling that this thing is horrible because it made me feel nasty. It's that was actually sort of there.
And I don't doubt that. And what I would say is that we're probably never going to know about this particular beep because there's too much water over the dam. We've had to work at this beep too hard. But now we have clarified a distinction or two, and maybe the next time, if we're in a similar situation, then it'll be we'll have an easier time getting to the heart of the matter.
Okay.
And it's all the same deal, same conversation that we had earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
The longer we wait to commit ourselves to things, the better off I think we're going to be.
Right. Okay.
Because if we were to, so we've arrived at this where I think it's the heart of the matter. And if we were to, what we've arrived at is that there was an unsymbolized thought in the middle of this mix. Let's say we had arrived at that, which I would say we probably shouldn't arrive at, but let's say we did. Okay. Then that would color all the future things. Well, I got to go looking for this unsymbolized thinking that's in the middle of any affective kind of deal.
All right.
And I would say, let's not do that. Let's leave as an open question whether there's some analytic-y kind of a thing in the, maybe there is, maybe there's not.
Okay.
And we might, if we sample long enough, answer that question for Gabriel. Or maybe we won't, either one. Though I'm not saying that we should make that as an aim. We're going to try to figure that out. Maybe we will have the opportunity, God will grant us the opportunity I don't know how you feel about all those kinds of things, but some omniscient being will provide us with a beep at the right time to sort these kinds of things out, or maybe it won't. And I wasn't trying to invoke a particular deity. I'm just trying to say it's not me. I'm not the omniscient being, and I don't know whether it's going to happen or not.
Okay.
Um,
Go ahead.
well, there's some other characteristics of this that are separate or that are not part of this. Should we keep going, or?
I'm guessing we've probably worn ourselves out here, and we should call this a day. And but I'm happy. Well, let me take it back. Go ahead and do it. I'm going to listen to what's happening here, but I'm going to turn myself off because my dog is scratching at the door. So
Okay.
go for it.
Okay. So the thing you had mentioned is there's an image of Walter White speaking. I just wanted to clarify that initially you had said that and the I am the danger was 80%. Are those similar to previously? Is that all one experience, or is that two separate things, or does that distinction not make any sense? Or
I think it's all of the same. The auditory thing of hearing I am danger and the image are basically the same thing. They're basically one experience.
Okay. So could you tell me about what you see?
Okay, that's just Walter White, black t-shirt, bald, angry, goatee, and then there's a blurry background, and the camera is slightly below, or I guess it's slight, yeah. So he is sort of in a high position. He's like kind of raised up in this image.
And is this an image, or is this like I see Walter White with a blurry background?
Yeah, this is I see Walter White with a blurry background. Well, I wasn't making a thing of the blurry background, but oh boy, here we go with blurriness again. I wasn't making a thing of the blurry background. Upon analyzing the image or this seeing, I can say that the background was not in focus. So I hope that explains what I meant by blurry there.
And by not in focus, do you mean I'm just not paying attention to it, or do you mean that it's out of?
I mean that it is out of focus. So I'm not paying attention to his shirt really, like however that is in focus, but the background is out of focus.
Okay. And is there anything more to be said about that?
I don't think so.
Okay. Any more questions about that?
Good.
Okay. And then the last 20% is this pain, your bicep.
Right.
Right. Which does the side like?
Yeah,
right
it does. It was my right bicep,
okay.
And it was it was a pain. It was like it felt like it was just it was a pain in my bicep. It was kind of like the size of a golf ball maybe. So it was localized to a specific part of my bicep, which was the front, and it felt like a kind of golf ball sized volume of pain.
And is that to say that that's just the area, like when you say golf ball, that's just like the area that you feel it, or is there something else that?
It's just the area. It's not like I feel like the pain takes the shape of a ball or anything. That's just sort of how it's spread outness, how spread out it is.
Okay. Is there anything more to be said about that?
I'll say that it's a burny pain. It's not like a stabbing pain or anything like that.
Okay. Any more questions about that?
I'm good.
But there too.
Yeah, I'm good as well.
Okay.
So shall we do this again?
I would be happy to.